looked at Bhaane because it was not a new brand. We did have an inspiration of the founding values, and we had inspiration of our existing customers, and we had a few insights. So what we immediately did was looked at a reference of what is new but made with old, and then yogurt just became so very easy to associate. And then I was like, no, this is excellent. And at the same time, we didn't want to call it yogurt or curd. We were like, let's call it dahi, because it's like that dahi means like it's not fancy. It's the state of dahi. It's very different than a yogurt.
Right.
And it's literally the vessel is very Indian, and it's the whole connotations. There's nothing else like dahi. Like that's it. Like that's a very quintessential Indian thing. It has that taste, and it has a nostalgia, and there's a difference between dahi and yogurt and curd. So we wanted to go in that and use that as a line where we're talking about starter culture, and startups, and new millennia and new decade, and sort of young driving force trying to bring about a change within the community. So it all sort of came together from that perspective, and it just became like a good line to run by. And then we got Riya Gupte to do a beautiful rendering. We'll talk about that later. But then that was just like, I wanted a visual punchy piece which would make people queasy, because I never liked pretty good things. I've always had that thing like, how do you distort beautiful sort of naturally cohesive thing? How do you make that a little bit abstract? And it's not random, it's just like a natural flaw. So that's where it all started.
No, fantastic. I mean, I remember me and the entire class, we were looking at the timeline and the history of curd, and how curd kind of has traveled from I think from Persia to like all over the world, and the different forms of curd, and it's so metaphoric, right? Because curd is something that is cultured, and it is kind of, it goes from one place to another, and so does culture. It's infectious.
Exactly. So the metaphor of what is global, what is available everywhere, it is not indigenous to anyone, and all you need is an essence of one into the other, and the contamination and uniformization of culture, like of that bacteria, which then also applies to our sort of values, whether it is through subculture or through popular culture, like this just sort of the flattening of all ideas and notions.
Right. No, I think it was super intelligent, because and we can actually talk a lot more about just this topic, but I'll go on to the next one. But thank you for answering that for us. So who is the Bhaane customer? And how are they evolving, especially in these times? And how is Bhaane responding or adapting to the needs of this evolving customer?
So, we are at the crux where we are discovering new customers. We started with a certain set of customers. So it was literally like first family and cousins, and now it has become the village. So it's still very small. We are still such a tight, we actually know our customers, some of them on first name basis, and we know, it's just because, it's such a, while we do have a certain volume, and I shouldn't really say first name basis, because we're a little bit more established in that. But what I mean is, we know who they are. We know their buying patterns. We know when they say, oh, I prefer the older style versus the newer style. We know exactly what they liked and why are they giving us that feedback. And then we are expanding our rationale. And then what is amazing is people coming back shocked with the quality. Because these are new first-time users, and they're like, how are you selling this so cheap? Like, how is it even possible? And then that's our investment into acquiring customers, where we're like, no, just experience the quality first, and then we'll talk about it. Our customer base is obviously expanding. Overall, what we want is everyday, consumers. So I don't want somebody saying, oh, I'm going to save up to buy this shirt. It is something where, okay, it's a great shirt. it's fine. This works for me. I will wear it so often. And it doesn't mean it's not for a hardcore fashion consumer. It is really for
Right.
somebody who wants a good shirt and
Right.
who understands quality.
Yes.
So that's our customer. When I started, I was like, let's just make uniforms for every single person who's a freelancer. Because, I was like, all my friends are freelancers. Everybody is in sort of design space. Everybody is in, either in film or design. And what are they wearing? And they're just sort of, wearing those basic runs of like denims and black t-shirt and white t-shirt. So for me, it was okay, what else can they wear where they're not necessarily having to dress up for a certain meeting in the middle of the day or a quick coffee grab. Sorry, I missed you. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we said, okay, we know that the customer is not necessarily working in a bank, could be in a bank, but for us, an ideal pen portrait would become this graphic designer or this fashion designer with a brand new job, or or a theater artist or a theater director. So it's not even age limiting. For us, even a 50-year-old like cool woman will be like, listen, I don't. Again, she could be wearing Indian clothes, but at the same time, when she's looking for something a little bit like Indian, then there are similar silhouettes within the brand, and then they understand it. So it's a much bigger range. I don't have one particular pen portrait because we're not selling look. It's not about buy that Bhaane top and that trouser or that skirt and the top and go out looking like a Bhaane girl. It is about like get anything from Bhaane and wear it with your favorite thing. Now your favorite thing could be from Zara, could be from H&M, could be from Fab India, or it could be a Vuitton bag. And that's exactly what we see. We see people elevating fashion so dramatically, at the same time dressing it down with sneakers and really like just making it pretty much everyday thing. So it's super versatile.
Great. Great. So now that we know who the Bhaane customer is, and also we've read so much about the Bhaane customer being non-binary. I mean, having non-binary preferences. Somebody who likes to shop at thrift stores, and So I think we're also coming to a point.
It's combination of somebody who's like Steve Jobs, who doesn't like to dress up but needs clothes, and going all the way to Sonam Kapoor, who loves to play dress up, which is like it just sprinkles across everything. Binary values or modernity is an overall understanding because we are hoping, or we don't know if our customers are conservative or orthodox, or we are just assuming they are elevated, sort of they have a certain sort of schooling and education and awareness of current affairs, both sort of social, political, understanding of where world is moving, and are fairly positive people and champions within their own space, or at least thinkers. Let's put it like that. Whether they're doing anything or not, but then they have a mind of their own.
Right. I think we are coming to a point where we look at Bhaane and we're like, oh, this is so Bhaane. So we are being able to identify the collection as a cohesive collective. So, great. Okay. So my next question is that we've seen the work of Bharat Sikka and Tenzing Dakpa on your Instagram. Dakka. On your Instagram page. What can we expect from the coming season?
So, with Tenzing, what has happened, again, just in terms of our conversations, we didn't want it to be everything about fashion and just constantly talk about clothes and what it's made of. And, like it's exhaustive, but we have so many stories we want to say. And they don't have to route via a fashion image. Image building is such a big integral part of our journey, where people sort of live through photos. We want to create great visuals. By that I mean, it doesn't have to be a great photo, as long as you understand what that photo is for, and then you read the caption and you understand the story. So it's not about just sourcing or looking for beautiful photos. It's about, does that tell what we are thinking, what everybody is it representing the brand's emotion at the time? So when we spoke to Tenzing, He's such a creative guy, so super brilliant, and he's got a very photojournalistic kind of perspective on fashion. So it almost looks like New York Times is going to shoot a fashion story, or like a very serious newspaper is like Economic Times. If they were to shoot a fashion story, who would they get? And I really feel like Tenzing would be one of those people. So and their fashion will be very like, we're not interested in fashion. And that take is so beautiful, and it's so purist. And all of us want to do that, right? Like we all eventually want to do deeper things and meaningful things other than clothes and beauty. But we do want to address that. So there is a certain indulgence and feel good factor in addressing whatever you do in life. So with Tenzing's photos, we wanted to look at, obviously everybody was in lockdown and we were seeing things out of our window. Our hands were tied. Brains had lots of ideas, and we said, okay, what is the community doing now? What is happening to community and infrastructure that was built for community? So what Tenzing really shared with us was these beautiful photos of architecture abandoned. And they were purpose built, like a stadium. If you think about stadium without people in it, it's just a very ghastly big piece of infrastructure, which is just going to have dust in it. So we look at schools and stadiums and playgrounds, which are really not for living. They are not to habitat, but then they are to cohabitat or co-use, which is the purpose of community and purpose of a brand as well. So we looked at community spots and things that really does what is their current state, and where are they mentally. And we just he came up with beautiful sort of photos, which were in a way very pleasant but painful, because we know it's temporary. It's not it's not like
forever.
It's not an abandoned Hollywood scene. But so when it came, I was like, no, this is it. This is what we want to do. This is a community center is built for a reason. Nobody lives there, but it is overly used, and it represents that. Then Bharat Sikha as well, when I borrowed that photo from Bharat, it was, we were looking at, so the summer collection, summer collection was sort of inspired by all our clubs. And, when we went for swimming lessons in like typical sort of your, middle class clubs where you sign in and sign out, and, and then there is ladies hour and gyms are shady. So we looked at all the mundaneness of these clubs, which are some in the city, some out of city. And they're very popular destinations for summer, whether it's a golf club or beach candy club. Bandra has Otters Club. Now, Otters Club is a great reference of how institutionally old something can be, and it doesn't need to be changed. You don't want a modern gymnasium. You don't want fitness first in Otters Club. You want Otters Club the way it is, with older people, with sort of, it's got that geriatric condition. That was the inspiration. And then obviously we tweaked our inspiration. We saw the inspiration with a different perspective, to see now what is happening to these areas. And then Bharat had shot this beautiful girl sitting in an empty pool. And that's what happened for 2 months, where all pools were emptied out because nobody was supposed to step in. Every single beautiful pool, like Beach Candy Club has the most beautiful pool, it was empty. I had friends sending me photos from their window. And it's an iconic pool, and nobody has imagined a pool. Nobody imagines a pool without water. Right? It's just a matter of perspective. You need an empty pool first to make a swimming pool, and then you fill it up with water. But nobody ever witnesses a pool empty. And that photo of Bharat was so representative of where we were in terms of mood and just sort of, waiting, and the longingness it captured for the collection was beautiful.
Right. I just want to tell all our students, in case you all haven't seen, the image of Bharat Sikha and the many images of Tenzing Dappa on Dappa. Sorry. I think I'm still getting it wrong. But please look at Bhane's Instagram page and just have a look at these images, and then of course go on to the photographers individual Instagram handles, and just simply look at the visuals, just so that you kind of get perspective into what Nimish was just talking about right now. Okay, now this brings me to a couple of other questions. And before that, again, I would request you all to please mute yourselves please be a little self-conscious. If you see that you are unmuted, please mute yourselves because we can hear uh, some conversation in the background. Great, thank you so much. Okay, so could you tell us, Nimish, could you tell us a little bit about your collaboration with Butico and how that happened?
So yeah, which was Boutique was such a beautiful story. So when I was researching on what sort of materials to introduce, we obviously wanted to push boundaries and introduce new price points, experiences through materials, and through I've had relationship with Boutique in the past. So what we really did was look at their infrastructure and what is the most basic thing they do, because they're such an artisanal brand and they do
Yes.
very, very high-end materials. And my conversations with them were like, listen, what is it that you can produce in larger quantities without really, like, it should become your bread and butter and not necessarily like, the biryani or whatever. So they were like, okay, fine, we can do these basic things very, very easily and quickly, and it's just a no-brainer. So we didn't want to prove a creative point. What we wanted to do was a consumption point on a manufacturing level. And we came up with the most beautiful wool, and it's Delhi winter, and we made these two amazing jackets out of that one very, very special fabric, and they became like the jackets for the season. And we were like, listen, if you buy this, you don't need anything else for the entire season. And it was handloom. It was like super beautiful. It was modern looking. One is an oversized jacket, one's a costume piece. So that's how we wanted to introduce these pulses, so we can build stories and we can start talking about our partners. And what we did was we just wanted to create that bank and inventory of new partners. So when we start talking, we would have applied our relationship. We're talking in progress. We're not saying an ambition. I'm not saying, oh, I want to work with Butico. I have worked with Butico. This is the product that has come out of it. So we wanted to make sure that it translates into our manufacturing, and our customers understand that.
Right. Okay, my next question is about Khalum and your collaboration with Khalum. And you've also spoken about other eco-sensitive, tech-infused innovations in multiple interviews. And we see that apparently in your collections as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I'll also kind of go on to the next question. So maybe you can kind of speak to us about everything together, since I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So also your collaboration with St. Paul and Godrej, and DS Durga, Matanat bags, veg, non-veg, obviously. We all think that your collaborations with your partners is really cool. Could you tell us a little bit about any more collaborations in the future, about these collaborations? That'd be great, yeah.
So we'll break this up in two. One is just sort of materials and sustainability, where our biggest sort of, we're working on a roadmap, which hopefully we'll be able to publish soon. So just the way you look at impacts of sustainability, whether it is social, environmental, or cultural. And as a brand, we want to tap into one or the other throughout our collection, which means we want to look at tech fabrics which are sensitive, which are mass produced and have less sort of carbon footprint. Similarly, we want to address culturally strong brands like Butico, which are artisanal and they sort of help safeguard a certain craft. So we are looking at artisanal bespoke textiles like Butico or Khadi. We get everything made, it is still handloom, and that kind of translates into trendier clothes. So impacts of sustainability we're dividing across cultural, environmental, and social. Environmental obviously comes easily through tech. When I say tech, I mean use of fabric materials like Cupro, Tencel, Loycel. So a lot of these advanced, because we've all studied this, we all know cotton is not necessarily the most, sustainable material. While organic cotton is something we use and is better for our environment, overall cotton as a crop is not the most sustainable. So if we were dying, I don't think cotton is going to save us. We will have to go towards an advanced tech material, tech fabric, which is faster to make and cheaper to make. So we apply all these. So we use QPro extensively, we use Modal extensively, and it just helps us expand our range in a better way. So that's our take on materials, applications, and material innovations within sustainable parameters. Then comes to your collaboration question. That goes back onto our beautiful community aspect of of partnering with people, like-minded people and brands that we believe in, friends we believe in, because after all, when we say it's a platform, it's really a platform for people to come and share, for us to be able to showcase newer brands and designers and products. My conversation with Godrej was again, when we were looking at the first collection and the whole sort of what does it mean to be a millennial or a Gen Z in 2020, and sort of thrift stores and recycling and reusing and hand-me-down clothes. And then for me, I wanted to make souvenir T-shirts. It's literally when you go on a holiday and you look at a very tacky design and you just get it for the heck of it. So we said, okay, what is it that can become like a tacky T-shirt or a tacky sweater? And we said, it should have a slapstick, multi-national brand with clean shit. We didn't want a brand which had bad sort of or questionable ethical values. And we said Godrej is no, never done anything bad in their life. Tata has never done anything bad in their life. Listen, we all grew up with Godrej, and
absolutely.
There are soaps which are mass manufactured. What I love about Godrej is Godrej has always been an educator. While they made the most cheapest soaps, their conversations were always about aspiration. They built aspiration in a budget soap, which is phenomenal, right? A lot of brands will say, oh, my customer is cheap and they don't understand English. It's like what is happening on all our soap operas. They're talking about village politics for urban audience, and it's sort of making them dumber rather than cleverer. But what Godrej did over a period of 100 years or 120 years is they just made their mass audience cleverer every time somebody bought a certain soap. Their ads were super strong. So we said, let's take this, and they finished 100 years that year in 2019. Last year. So we said, okay, great. Now let's just coin this 100 years of Godrej being in soap business, and that's where the whole sort of collaboration came about. Similar sort of partnerships with DS and Durga. DS and Durga again is a very, very sensory brand. They do the most expensive and exquisite fine fragrances, and these are things where you would want to save up to, or say, no, I'm only going to use one perfume and it will be this one, and finding the whole experience, and them naming their perfumes. They've got something called Radio Bombay, they've got something called Mississippi. So it is such a trip. You already know that this is going to be just namesake, and the branding and the packaging and the story is so robust, apart from product obviously being purist. So it's a quick trip. It's like a trip down memory lane. So DS and Durga worked out. Matt and Nat again is something, they are 100% vegan. They do great sort of on point, on trend bags and accessories. So from a sustainability standpoint, we wanted to partner with them and put them out there, and they do great accessories. There we go. That's quite a mouthful.
Great. Yes, and so many things that so many things that I didn't know about, especially with how you chose and why you chose Godrej. Okay, so you've spoken about podcasts for Bhaane, and we're very curious because it's in the offering, I'm hoping, or it is something that you've spoken about a couple of times. So would you like to talk about that? But just before you answer, I'm just going to take a moment to try and ask the students to mute themselves. Guys, Akanksha Srivastava, Disha Talreja, Formi Bawa, Naba Malika, Peenal Jain, Rashi Butada, Rucha, Shristi Goyal and Vartika, please mute yourselves. Gauri, could you please help me out and kindly mute them?
Poonam, a lot of the students don't have their sound settings, and on my screen here, I see that there's nobody who's unmuted, apart from you, me, and Nimish. So
Okay.
I'm not sure where these sounds are reaching you from, but it's definitely not from the students.
Okay, so I've already called out a couple of names, guys. Please see if there's some way you could mute yourselves. Great, thank you. Okay, so yeah, back to the podcast question, Nimish.
Yeah. So again, going back to original conversations of what is a modern medium, how do we think out of the box, and what is it that we want to sell. Funny enough, I actually wanted my first collection to be a series of podcasts, and we didn't want to put out any clothes, which obviously didn't happen because it needed a lot more research, the quality of podcast, the distribution, and the sort of aspect of building like a quality content. That sort of, there was a little bit of a pushback on that front. Podcast as a medium is always, while it's modern, it takes a lot of, like, you need an editorial command to be able to gain that sort of attention.
Right.
We are still away in terms of that kind of, for me, a caption and people reading an entire caption is good enough. Like, for me to get them to listen to me for like a half an hour session on a low production value is very challenging. So podcast is we've always been on fence about podcasts for some reason. Why do a podcast if you can do like a smaller video for Instagram? We're always evaluating. So we're not generalizing Facebook and Instagram. We're not discrediting Facebook because it has fallen down. We're not jumping on TikTok because that's the new it thing. We're taking our time. We're seeing where we want to be. If we have anything meaningful to say and do, we don't want to just do it because that's like, where the attention is. I'm personally a big I listen to podcasts quite a lot. For me it's a great medium. But when we did sort of polls, it is something I want to do, but I don't know yet. We'll get to it.
Great, we'll get to it when we do. Okay, the last few questions. What, according to you, is the landscape of the fashion industry going to be going forward?
So, COVID has really shaken things up in terms of fashion as an industry. What happens is in India, and just from being in industry for all these years, what I've observed is starting up your own business or starting up your own fashion line is just the easiest thing to do. Fashion design is still like an aesthetic profession, which implies you kind of come from some sort of backing to be able to start your own business. But that's not the right thing to do. And people always often jump the gun too soon without enough experience. So what it does is it contaminates the industry. We see so many, recent graduates wanting to set up their own business, and it's easy to set up business. I don't think setting up business is a challenge. Sustaining the business is a challenge. So now what has happened is there has been a lot of contamination. We are going through a cleaning process. Like, we're going through this elimination process where survival of the fittest will come in place. We will have to look at brands that manage to stay afloat, declutter, rethink of what you want to offer, not use this as a commercial opportunity only, where you're making bad products, you're taking bad decisions, and just like cluttering the market, because our customers are so naive and they are just willing to accept whatever you want to sell. They're eating out of your palms. But the whole sort of beauty of creating product, or people who've understood that they know how to make good product, are so overpriced. That itself is also a problem. So there is that cleanliness on that front, where brands which were going superbly overpriced, they're rethinking. They're thinking about, like, why does anybody need to spend like 18,000 rupees on a cotton dress? And new designers are doing that, which is rather stupid, because it's just like, don't discredit your customer. Like, even if they're rich, don't do that. Like, it's stupid to overcharge. All of these lessons that people have, all of these things that people have been ignoring for over 8 to 10 years, all of that will undo. there will
Apparently.
be purity of labor, of understanding, of like, of soaking things in and just doing like a good quality product, cleaning up your communication, and being creative, like, research into research so much. And I think the landscape will clean up quite a lot from that perspective. There will be that, brands will drop out. What will then come out, or what will then stay, is people with good stories, with with sustainable approach, with a
Yeah.
long-term approach. And
Yeah.
sustainable does not mean organic and khadi and whatever. Like,
Yeah.
when I say sustainable, it's really about like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are people, are you addressing your people within your ecosystem? Are you addressing profitability? Because if you can't make money, you're going to
Yeah.
burn out.
Yeah.
So the legitimacy of your brand and business, all of this, it's a tricky situation right now to forecast anything, because everything is out the window until we sort of settle from the crisis.
Yeah.
But whatever comes out of like something so dire, like what we went through right now, it has to be like the purest form of energy, or purest form of what you really want to do. So I'm hoping like the next 10 years there is this hygiene within the industry, of decluttered, purer sort of clothes, lesser clothes, fashion, or creativity across different channels, not just making clothes.
Right.
It applies in magazines, it applies in photography, applies
Yeah.
in creative writing.
Right.
So
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. That's actually a very interesting perspective of what you think the future will be, and a lot of food for thought. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, how does Bhane plan on supporting the community in these trying times, and how is it already doing its bit?
So, we are such a small business, from extending support. We're really like, we're babies. So for us to commit big support or big charity was never going to be possible. But what we went through was what we had in our heart. Like, we really
Yeah.
said, okay, this is our core team. What do we want to do? And
Yeah.
immediately, like, call out was made for, for urban animals.
Yes.
Which is why in the very first week we decided to commit sort of some sort of revenue. I mean, we gave our entire month's revenue, which was a lot of money for a company in crisis.
Yes.
But we gave that revenue to feed stray animals.
Street dogs, yeah.
So we partnered with Friendly Co. So again, hygiene and approach of understanding who we want to partner with, and audits of making sure that it goes through the right channels. Because we didn't want to just flood out resource while there is such a mass appeal for whether it is migrant worker or it is frontline workers. There was enough aid coming their way, and to be honest, like, government would have to sort of support these causes. But the smaller causes like of urban animals was being ignored. So we had a community activity through these sort of very small pulses, but something that was soul satisfying for us. Going further in terms of engaging community, or what we can do is, we are a platform, we want to be available. So we partnered with creative individuals to sort of help us express what we are thinking, what they are thinking, in a beautiful story format, which is where 21 Days of Bhaane came about, where we said 21 Days is going to become such an iconic movie title. Like, we're all, I mean, it's been way more than 21 days, but then that first round of 21 days was a big one for everybody to swallow.
Yeah.
So just like knowing 21 days, and we said, let's get enough artists to give us contributions, and and can we commission a few artists. So then eventually what we came up with like this is this collection of art forms and art expressions. Sorry, one second. I want 10% now. Yeah. So just a collection of beautiful renderings. There is a video. We had like just a pure audio clip. We wanted to tap into sort of music space and see what is going on. See, everybody was sitting home. It was really like, what can you do with your hands and legs and like a Wi-Fi. So everybody, whoever could do within their domesticated, spaces, we've partnered, and then we edited that out, and again, very, very small narratives.
Right. Great. And now my last question to you is that, yeah. So, yeah. So we are in a time where things are uncertain, and we're largely clueless of what the future holds. How have you been keeping yourself creatively engaged, other than, of course, working on the brand and working with collaborations? But what's the music that you're listening to? If there's a documentary that you tell our students, oh my God, you must watch it. A book, that you'd say that this is such a great book for, whatever. So if you could.
Yeah. So, can I be, I'm gonna have a bit of a moment of honesty here. So many people have asked me, you must be so creatively charged. You must have been like, you must have done so much. For me, it's like, no, I'm trying to run a business. I'm so stressed. I'm not creatively charged. I'm not on a holiday drinking a cocktail. So from a creative standpoint, it is, and I think for all of us, everybody who's listening also, you're all creative individuals, everybody needs to find their own tempo. You can, some people work beautifully under a very severe pressure, and then they yank off like a 6 months job in 2 nights. And some people really want to take that time and, create artistic products and ease that out. So for somebody like me, I've just had like so much pressure of like looking at lots of various business aspects and angles. And I don't want to say there was no crisis. We are still in crisis. So we're just sort of, we can stay positive, but the thing is, it's very important for everybody to know and say, yes, it is crisis. We will sort of, overcome this because it is it's one of its kind. So I've been zoning in and out. Like I've not necessarily been very, very stringent with like, oh, I'm going to do this online course and I'm going to go listen to this webinar. First week was very productive, where we were like, okay, no, how are we tackling this? Who's doing what? Trying to investigate. And after a couple of weeks, lots of business phone calls to other businesses, other designer friends. What are they doing? How are they addressing a certain labor issue? Or how are they addressing, running out of cash flow? So those kind of things. Now, in terms of creative standpoint, I've obviously been looking at a lot of like, I'm a sucker for like period films. So I've been seeing a lot of those. I've got a whole list I'm happy to share. In terms of music as well, like, in terms of music, like lots of shared playlist. And these are things, you kind of come across online by just following the right kind of people, and you see what they are listening to. And then there are some very upbeat ones. And you see people's personalities, right? Like people get excited about mellow, calming, yogic music. And then there are some people who are just like looking at like, oh my God, what is going to be like, just shake my head up. A big variation of like what pastimes, let's put it like that. I took up a little bit of cooking, a lot of cleaning, so a lot of decluttering, understanding what is going on.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for that, Nimish. I think we have we have one question from Udisha which has not been answered, which I haven't asked you, and I think we can have another question after Udisha. Dwivedi asks a question. Udisha, would you like to ask your question yourself, please? Okay, I will ask it for you. So Udisha asks, how do you keep your brand sustained in a competitive market?
I think, see, we have to address why this brand. What does this brand stand for? Profitability is important, and it stays parallel to product.
Right.
We manage to keep it sustainable by knowing that there is clarity of thought and clarity in product making. So it's really about, what are you trying to make and why, and is this something that is required, and can you put your back in it to communicate about it. So it's really about looking at your business plan, looking at your brand motto, and looking at where you stand, why you wanted to do this. Are you changing that first? We've had as a brand, I was only thinking of long-term visions, and immediately, like last 2 months were like short-term visions about like, what do we need to do now? How do we address this? How can we become creative right now?
Sorry, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's there's no answer, but then it's really like, just a lot of vigilance and a lot of like, keeping your eyes open.
Okay. There's another question by Simran Kapoor. Simran, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hi, Nimish. Thank you so much for this class, first of all.
Hi, Simran.
Yeah, so my question is, like, there are so many interesting designs and styles with which Bhaane deals. So, like, is there always a motive behind each and every design or each and every garment which you design, or not? Like, every time, are you trying to convey a message through your clothes?
Yes. So, we obviously don't design one product every day. We think of it as a season, and in a season, we want to communicate a message. A white t-shirt is part of that season. So obviously, I don't want to say, oh, we thought a lot about this white t-shirt. We just feel like that is integral part of the collection and the offering. What that t-shirt stands for is for the season's inspiration, and not necessarily what is the story behind this t-shirt. Similarly, because we do so many classic pieces, they are all part of our wardrobe fillers. So yes, a collection is, and a season is thought through. It's very strongly edited. We have to look at our retail intros. We have to look at what is in the shop at the time. And there are lots of logical reasons behind putting together what is in a shop. When you step out, you see a big spectrum of various products. So everything is inspired. There is a reason why we believe in it and we want to do it, and design applies in every single thing, even if it's the most basic thing, just like the way it is finished, or the care label, or the care instruction. We want to see what else we can do, how else can we make it more sort of friendly for customers. How are we packaging it? How are we selling that particular product? So there is thought that goes in every single thing.
Great.
Okay.
Simran, does that answer your question?
Yes, exactly. That's what I wanted to know.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nimish. Just maybe a couple of two more questions, guys. If there's anything that you'll really want to ask Nimish, please put up your question in the chat box. The Aditi Seshadrinath, would you like to please ask your question? Aditi? Okay.
Yeah. Hi. I want to know that when many times when we start a brand, we always have like a conflict between the creative inspiration and then the commercial needs of the brand. So how do we kind of balance it out?
I think that is a very, that is the challenge, right? That is, it's like if everybody had the answer, like that's why it's a creative business. There is no formula for this. You really have to come up with your own purpose. If you are inspired for something, you have to find commercial angle to it. Or if you're inspired by commerce, you need to find a creative solution to it. For example, something like No Nasties. If you guys don't know, you should follow this brand out of Goa. They sell organic cotton t-shirts. And the fundamental principle was like, we want to sell basic organic clothes. Once that was set, they figured designs around it. Similarly, if you look at designer brands like say a Dhruv Kapoor or like a Bodice or Shift, when I did, it was a creative expression, and then we found commerce to back it. You'll have to pick one, whatever your core strength is, and then expand the other.
Great. Aditi, does that answer your question, please?
Thank you. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nimish. I think one last question from Janvi, and Janvi's asked me to ask it on her behalf. What are the three essential qualities one needs to become a creative director?
Oh my God, I have no idea. I think, I don't think there are any roles, which is we're at a state where we're not in the 70s and the 80s where an ad agency will have a creative director and like a manager and like a brand associate and like a junior. I think by the time you get into a senior role, everybody just has to, it really goes back into like a very desi style of business of like, how do you stay afloat? There's demarcation of work. What qualities you would need to claim to be a creative director. Obviously, one will be, have like a creative instinct and have like an idea of how to execute. Second would be clarity of business. I think clarity of business comes first for every sort of senior role. You can't be creative if you don't know what the business stands for. And team management. What I've realized through Shift and what I couldn't address earlier was expanding your team, because there's only that much you can run yourself. So talent acquisition and building team and sort of training team is equally important. So yeah, business management, HR, and then being creative like for 2% of your time.
Great. Thank you, Nimish. Thank you for sharing that with Janvi. Janvi, does that answer your question? Okay. I think Janvi is on mute, so that's okay. Nimish, one last question from Vinay Chabra. I think it's an interesting question, and then we kind of close the masterclass. So Bhaane is a brand which mainly produces anti-fit garments, but now the latest collection looks like there is a shift in style, like there is a range of body-hugging clothes in the collection. So what brought about that change? That's the question.
So perception of Bhaane, which is very ill-fitting or sort of an oversized look and feel, was what Bhaane was known for. Bhaane was in between. When they started, they were something else. Then they went into this space of being very street and cult, which was a very mindset, and it was a very much of the moment. The brand could have grown completely in that direction, where it could have become like a super street brand. And then when I came on board, obviously that my personal aesthetic sort of comes in, where it's not really street. It is very sort of urban posh. There's a big emphasis on good fit. There's a big emphasis on quality, durability, and not really making, like, again, the difference between fancy dress and and style and well-styled garment. So the change was part of the whole of the new direction, and we introduced that right from the first collection in 2019. So we're not, when we do sort of oversized clothes, they fit in for story. It's not because we just want to do it. You have to see the whole range in a wholesome, holistic manner, and not one particular product. Because we're not the brand who sells oversized t-shirts. At the same time, if you go in our shop, you may find one.
Right. Great. Thank you, Nimish. I think that was the last question that we're taking for today. Any parting notes, any advice that you'd like to give students before we kind of close the masterclass?
So I think it's a very, very interesting year for everybody, and especially for students, because this every 10 years or so, and probably lesser and lesser, the time window will shrink more and more. Market crashes. You have to understand economics of inflation, deflation. This one obviously was not foreseen in terms of financial crash, but we will hit into recession soon after we sort of open up. So understand economics. Don't remember, you've taken this as a career, not as a 5-year stunt or not as a 2-year gig. Once you graduate, you really are getting into the industry for a long haul. You probably retire being in fashion. So just observing trends. I graduated, I think, in 2008, and that's the same year the markets collapsed, and it was amazing where I graduated. And I got this great honors, and it was amazing. And all of a sudden, it was such a dry slump, and it was you feel like you've spent all this time studying fashion, and you really want to get that real job and that in real life. It comes very, very slowly, but you have to be very, very patient. Experience makes so much difference. and it's only here in India I've realized, internships don't happen after graduation and blah, blah, blah. And like a variety of things. I just feel like when you graduate, all you have is like an academic skill set and you have a temperament for fashion. You have no experience of fashion. So getting experience is so important, working with the right company, and just breaking your own mold. Because after a point, nobody listens to their parents at this age, or it's really about going out there in the market and telling people like you really don't know how to do it. I still ask people, like every time I meet my vendor and they talk about some yarn or some complex something, I'm like, sorry, I don't know all of this, please explain. And I'm very shameless about if I don't know something, I just ask the source. And that's exactly how you learn. And a lot of my mentors who are in their 50s and 60s still do that. Because if I come up with something, they're like, no, you have to explain me. So there is no stopping of learning. But there is always gaining of more experience. So go out there, get a lot of experience, hands-on experience, and get smart. Like you can't be dimwits. Fashion is not for slow, like slugs, because it's not a secondary career. Those days are over in the 80s and 90s where you feel like it's a vocation, because you don't want to study science or you don't want to study like maths. You take up like a creative thing. This is equally challenging. Like just you have to really like push your brain.
Right. Great. Thank you so much, Nimish, and best of luck for everything that the future
Thank
is
you.
Doing with it.
Thank
And
you.
we hope
You
to.
always as well.
Thank you. We hope to collaborate with Bhaane and with you soon for live projects, for internships, for more masterclasses with you, hopefully. But thank you for this one, and thank you for talking about everything so honestly. I think our students are going to go back home and have a lot to think about after everything that you've said, and so will I. So thank you very much.
Thank you.